SMQBs episode 120. So much to talk about, but in the initial nobody asked you, Derek Walker, for your opinion segment, we do have
hey, get your own pod and then you can make a comment like that.
Just kidding. Love you, brother. Hey, the NBA draft is this week. Who can tell me who has the 20th pick? In honor of episode 120. Who has the 20th pick?
So let's see.
Knicks.
16 teams made the 20th.
No.
Somewhere around a
don't go that
Phoenix.
Nope.
No, somewhere around like a 7 seed, like a 6 or 7 seed.
Yeah, that assumes it wasn't.
Wait a minute. Well, the Rockets have about 20 picks, so I'm going to go with the Rockets.
Thunder.
Good one. The Houston Rockets from the LA Clippers. All right, follow up, because everybody likes a trivia question to start the segment off here. Who was drafted 20th last year?
Ooh. Probably someone who's playing better than the people drafted 2 and 3.
I just had to confirm that I'm on an NBA draft results website because I don't have any idea who this person is.
Who is it?
Spurs, who will have a much different draft fortune this year, drafted Malachi Branham out of Ohio State.
Malachi.
And how about this? Because everybody loves trivia to start the podcast off. Here are just some of the great players taken with the 20th pick in the draft. Mike D'Antoni in 1973.
Wow.
Gus Williams in 75. Larry Nance in 1981.
Well, that's a really good one.
That might be the best one, actually. Buck Johnson in 86.
He was good.
Yeah.
Gus Williams was good too.
Hubert Davis.
Yeah, there you go.
92.
Oh, man.
Someone knows him.
Zydrunas Ilgauskas in 96.
He was good.
Yeah. Speedy Claxton in 2000.
Played with Magic, right?
No.
He was the next best point guard after Magic to come out of there.
Speedy Claxton came out of Hofstra.
Yeah, no. Speedy, you're thinking of a different.
I thought he was at Michigan State.
No.
All right. Can we edit this whole section?
Yeah.
Then you got Toby. You'll appreciate this. Jameer Nelson.
Good.
2004.
I'm thinking of Mateen.
Cleaves.
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 Yes.
Karis LeVert came out of Michigan in 2016, and in 2019 it was Matisse Thybulle.
Love Matisse.
So
he's playing
that's some trivia.
20 is no guarantee to get a good player.
No, it is not. So that is a lesson.
With this show, are we 1/5 of the way to a second tattoo or no?
Oh.
I mean, what are we doing when we get to 200?
Brands.
Having a bicentennial parade?
Brands.
Yeah, we're getting
brands.
All right. So look, we've got to talk about golf. It's the dominant story. Hope. We'll let you kick it off with the U.S. Open because we may have some disagreements as we work through some new developments here today.
I don't know about new developments. It's just an evolving concept of what really happened a couple of weeks ago when Liv and PGA got together and decided to come up with whatever they're brewing. But in the interim, golf continues. So what we're talking about is another phenomenal major finish on Sunday. The LA Country Club, which hadn't hosted a major in years, was retrofitted for this tournament, and it was an interesting course. A lot of angles, a lot of elevation changes, but the fairways were pretty wide, which kind of played, I think, into the ability for Wyndham to win because his driver wasn't hugely accurate, but he didn't hit that many shots out of the fairway because it was so wide. But ultimately, Wyndham Clark, who nobody.
Wait, I'm jumping in already. I'm calling bullshit on that. the fairways are wide, but they all slope like.
Yeah, and there's
all over
trees.
the
There's
place.
trees right
I
right
didn't
that
think-
you have to go over.
I didn't think the width was the issue of the fairways, right? I mean, I actually thought his driver was pretty good. He was pretty accurate with his
Well,
driver.
Well, yeah, there were some holes, like especially 18. I mean, he hit that ball most major championship courses. That ball is buried in the second cut. He barely got it, on the right side of the fairway. So,
But that
Look, I
course
mean-
sets up for a cut shot, and he's got a wicked hard cut shot.
No
He
doubt.
hits a fade. He hits a really nice fade.
no doubt, but his claim to fame was his ability, his short game. And, without that unbelievable up and down that he had at 8, at 9, at 11, at what, 16 when he was in the fairway, line 3 or line 2, and he got up and down from 125. I mean, every time you thought he would flinch, every time you thought that somebody of his experience level, and you remember, guys, I mean, I looked this up. His record in the majors going back,
Not good.
only 5 majors. Last time he was in the major PGA Championship at Oak Hill this year, he was +8, missed the cut. Last year, the Open Championship, he was +1, T76. Missed the cut at the U.S. Open. In 21, he missed the cut at the U.S. Open. He was PGA Championship in 21. He was +10, T75. In 2020, PGA +4, T105. This guy had never been in the top 75 of a major, and there he is, facing down, Rory McIlroy, who was playing, incredible golf. Wasn't able to get a putt to go down, but Scotty Scheffler, number 1 in the world. I mean, he stared those guys down. Ricky Fowler, we can talk about him, but it wasn't his day. It's just adds to the litany of close calls for Ricky at majors, but he can't close. His record with 54-hole lead is 2 out of 10 now. And so, ultimately it came down to Wyndham Clark was able to do the things that the top players in the world weren't. He was able to make pars when he needed them. He had a key birdie on 14 with, he said probably the shot of the tournament for him was that 5-wood from the fairway that he put there, right? Just that really thin 10 yards about landing area on the neck. And then he had that eagle putt, barely missed, but he had a tap in birdie. Rory's downfall was, and he got a huge break, guys, on 14. He got a huge break when the ball embedded in the bunker, yet he was able to, pull it out because it was embedded. He got a drop. It wasn't the worst lie. He should have got up and down. If he gets up and down, then we're probably looking at a playoff. But, ultimately it's another 9-year drought for Rory continues. In, Hoylake, where he last won a major, is where we're headed next. So maybe he can end it there. But
when did Clark hook up with his current caddy? Because that seemed like a very interesting and beneficial relationship to him.
I don't know.
I think they've been buddies for like forever.
Well, that guy's a tour pro, or was.
Yeah.
I don't know that we'll ever see something like that again. Someone who's played in 2 U.S. Opens and ended up, first of all, it takes a certain humility to say, I'm going from being a tour pro who's played in a major to carrying someone's bag. I was pretty impressed with that. And he's anytime they mic'd those guys up, he said all the right things to keep him in the groove.
Be an athlete.
I think this tournament was decided on Saturday on the 18th hole.
Oh,
I think that is when
Fowler.
when Ricky missed that bunny to stay at -11 and have to end his third round with a really disappointing, just bad ending. And Wyndham Clark dug down deep to make a heck of a birdie, because I think everybody suspected
hit the stick.
Everybody thought at the end that it was going to be this dream final twosome of Ricky versus Rory for the U.S. Open. And you could see how bad Wyndham Clark wanted it. And that changed everything. Wyndham Clark went into Sunday with huge momentum and confidence, and Ricky went into Sunday deflated that he couldn't make a gimme.
Yeah.
You know, Ricky.
By the way, just to complete the circle on the caddy, the guy's name is
It was John,
John Ellis, I
Yeah.
think. He is a 2008 Canadian Tour Player of the Year. He won 3 Canadian Tour tournaments. After he finished as a pro, he went to Oregon, University of Oregon, where he was an assistant coach. He also played there, and that's where he met Clark.
Wyndham.
And so, yeah, he's been his caddy for some time.
I think he's more than his caddy, though. I mean, the announcers were saying Clark doesn't have a swing coach.
Right.
It's just him and Ellis.
Just the two of them. Yep.
Well, and you know, Ricky, I mean, he obviously took the loss with great, you know, character as he is, but he did say on 18 on Saturday that it was too dark, that he had a problem reading that putt.
Well, he's wearing sunglasses, though.
Right.
That's also true.
Take sunglasses off.
Well, but you know, a little milk slap, and well, Wyndham Clark said on 16 that it was hard for them to see the ball starting on 16 on Saturday. So I'm going to give a little milk slap to the PGA, or actually USGA, for running the final pairing so late on Saturday just to appease, you know, prime time Eastern time zone. I mean, they had obviously plenty of time to get that damn entire group through on Saturday.
3
They
feet.
shouldn't have been playing. They shouldn't have been playing golf in the near darkness for a major championship. It was a self-inflicted error. They didn't need to do it, and as evidenced by Sunday when they started tee times an hour earlier. I mean, they'd already planned on it, but
I mean, it was about a 3-footer he missed.
Yeah, I think 85% of tour players make that with their eyes closed.
Right. I mean, how much sunlight do you need?
I'm not necessarily making an excuse for Ricky. I'm just saying that's not the way that you want to have your major championship finish up on a Saturday afternoon in the near dark.
But
So I have 3. Go ahead.
I just following up on that milk slap. I'm hoping you'll close the fingers to a hole punch, because I don't know if you were following that whole story with what the combination of USGA and LACC did with the tickets, and really depriving what would have been a full throttled gallery of being able to attend a major, because they only released a certain number of general admission tickets, reserved so many for the corporate tickets, and of the general admission, the club bought up so many of them for themselves.
Right.
So and there was like 5,000 regular people that could go each day. That is bad. That's really bad.
I mean, the grandstands were largely empty for a good chunk of the tournament, you know, especially the grandstands around the 18th until they were empty for a lot of the tournament.
Yeah, I that was a bad look.
It was bad. Rooster,
some of the players complained about it. Sorry, Rooster.
I just had 3 pieces of advice for Ricky, because I like him and I want him to win. Number 1, when it gets dark outside, take your sunglasses off. Number 2, eat a fucking cheeseburger. And number 3, maybe on Sunday you should ditch the orange clothes.
Yeah.
It's not working, brah.
Yeah, it is not working.
That's
it
right.
is not working. I agree.
And I guess to come full circle, since we've done a milk slap, a punch, we have a little Lasso too moment, because Wyndham Clark, obviously, and you know, Chris has it, so maybe I'll let him talk about it, but his virtual background has the emotion that you saw after he won, and time he was thinking about his mother. Chris, talk about that.
Well, I mean, you know, his mom died. His mom was a golf instructor, and really brought him into the game, and you know, was his sort of you know, not only his coach but his rock to lean on, I guess. And she died of breast cancer while he was enrolling at was it Oklahoma? Is that where he was? Oklahoma State, right. And you know, when she passed, he really sort of fell apart, by his own admission. I mean, he was sort of an asshole. He was, you know, he's talking about boozing and driving his car as fast as possible, and really just did not handle it. Yeah, angry, didn't handle it well. I mean, understandably, of course, and this is all by his own, you know, admission and recounting what he went through. And you know, he finally left Oklahoma State, transferred to Oregon. And you know, there was a comment yesterday, we were joking about it. Someone said that he's got the talent, he just hasn't been able to get out of his own way. Well, he joined the tour in 2019 and has over $11 million in winnings. So, you know, I jokingly said I wish I had gotten in my own way to that effect too. But more so than any of that stuff, it's not, the question wasn't him getting in his own way. It's just overcoming the emotion of all that, and the emotion did pour out of him. You know, this happened. She passed several years ago, but I think the connection to the game and the way that he had to really fight through all the emotion, you know, it would have been easy for him to quit golf, right? You could say that was something he did with his mom. She passed, it didn't work out. It would have been very easy to see this guy never pick up clubs again. And instead he went the other way and he stuck with it and he figured it out. And, you know, you got to think that some of that perspective, and I think he even used that word, helped him down the stretch and staying focused. And, you know, I'm sure he's not sitting there thinking, well, I've been through tougher things than this before, but, you know, it does make you tough-minded when you go through struggles and adversity. And so the story, but the emotion really did just come pouring out when he tapped in to win it.
Hope,
And you could see him look to the sky after he had cozied up, putt on 18 before he tapped out. You know, he looked up to the sky before Ricky putted.
he was unflappable. It was a great story. My question to you, Pope, about this great story is it a one-hit wonder? Is he a Sean McKeel? Is he you know, Hamilton? Are we going to see him win another major?
Pope?
Oh, we lost Pope, or he's just stumped with it.
Yeah.
I've
He's
never
frozen. Pope
never-
is frozen. Pope is frozen.
Well, what's your take, guys, before he comes back? What do you think this?
Well,
I'm back. PayPal Wireless is having some issues. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
we're all
You think he's-
our whole fans are waiting with bated breath on your answer.
Yeah.
He's
Oh,
not.
he's frozen again.
Frozen again.
Oh boy. Well,
I think he's likely to win another. I mean, you can't play that well and be a fluke. I mean, others who have won tournaments with bad weather or whatever and close scores, and you know, this guy just looked too solid to me. He's a machine if his head is straight.
I think it's really hard to win a major, right? I mean, look at the guys. You know, it's funny because the story is this guy Wyndham Clark who wins it, but look at who was knocking on the door, right? I mean, everybody was in there. You've got Rory, Scotty, Cam Smith, Tommy Fleetwood, Minwoo Lee, okay, Ricky Fowler, Tom Kim, who's going to be a superstar by all accounts, Harris English, Austin Eckroat, okay, and then John Rahm and Xander and DJ. Those are your top 10, right? So I mean, gosh, the cream really does rise to the top. It's really amazing when you think about that he came through that, and none of those guys. Rahm made a run on yesterday a little bit. He had a good round. He was just too far back to be relevant, really. But I think it would be pretty surprising if he won another major, just because there's only a couple guys who win multiple majors. You know, it's not. There's only, you know, you got to be really in that top 5, top 10 of the world to crank those things out. They're hard to win.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that. I do think he'll have a successful career. I mean, he already has.
Sure.
He's won some important tournaments, like the Wells Fargo. Isn't that the one that got Rory started as well?
Yeah, he did win the Wells Fargo. He's won 2 of his last 4 now.
Yep.
So it was a fun tournament. It was a great tournament. It was, you know, it was a lot of fun to watch. It had a good story. You know, I think that I really hope we can get Pope in on this, though, because I do think we have to spend just a minute on the Tom Watson letter that came out a little bit ago. I think it just came out, at least it just sort of hit the social media sites and everything. And you have one of the real, you know, the stalwarts of the game who's come out and said, boy, PGA Tour, you got a lot of explaining to do. more or less, right? And
use the word hypocrisy at least 3 times.
He did, and he tried to be diplomatic in saying they had a hard job to do. He knew Monahan and he knows how hard the guy works and cares, but right, and it was pretty tough coming from Tom Watson. That's something that means a lot. And by the way, we still haven't heard from Tiger, as far as I can tell, on the whole deal. I think that was a pretty tough letter, Pope. I hope you're there. And
I'm
can
here.
weigh in
Can you
on
hear
it.
me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I don't know how long the Papal Wireless here in the retirement village in Georgia is just not up to snuff.
Well, don't retire on us yet, Pope. We need you.
Yeah. No, that was a scathing letter, but Tom has questions that we've all had. How is this going to look? I mean, and the lack of transparency, which of course, when you got a member of the PGA Tour board on a player who's not even brought in in the loop. So, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of questions. Maybe I'm not willing to boycott the PGA like y'all are. Maybe that's the bottom line.
So look, Tom Watson comes from a generation of folks whose parents or even older siblings fought in World War II. And he mentioned D-Day in that letter. How ironic it was that this happened on D-Day.
Yep.
And the fact that a foreign country invaded us and bombed 9/11 hits people like him hard. He's a very patriotic guy. And I just love the way he concluded that letter with, how do I look, explain to me how I look families of 9/11 victims in the eye and tell them this is okay. That's a tough task ahead for Monahan.
Yeah.
And apparently he listens to the pod, because he asked the same question that we asked 1 week ago, which is this the only viable financial plan to rescue the tour from its financial problems? Like that's what we asked. Wasn't there some other financial solution other than this one?
Right.
That's the question that I want answered. Was there a plan B? And if not, then the whole thing was a ruse all along to say it was non-negotiable to talk to the Saudis. Yep.
Well, we just had to mention that. I think we want to move on. We got a lot of things we want to talk about. But again, the Open was great. It was a welcome distraction on golf, to actually watch some good golf and have a great outcome like that. But back to reality, and the PGA has a lot to work out here. And I know there's at least a couple guys on here who maybe will go outside and swing the clubs instead of sitting home to watch other people do it for the next couple of weeks. So with that, hey, Rooster, we crowned an NBA champion since our last pod. Let's talk a little hoops.
Yeah, we sure did. Before we get to the champs, let me just congratulate the Eastern Conference winners of the Miami Heat. They had a above average year, but not a great year. They had a 44-38 record and had to come into the playoffs through the play-ins. They lost their first play-in game to the Hawks and then beat the Bulls, and then proceeded to march through the strongest teams in, I'd say 3 of the 5 strongest teams in basketball. They beat the Bucks 4-1, the Knicks 4-2, and the Celtics 4-3. I would put probably the Sixers in front of the Knicks in terms of strongest teams in basketball in that category, 3 out of 5, but still impressive march. And then they just came face to face with undoubtedly the best team in the NBA this year, the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets were charter members of the ABA in like 1967, I think it was. And after the merger with the NBA in 76, there were 4 surviving ABA teams, and the Nuggets are the last of the 4 to win a championship. So 27 years later, they win their first championship. But they had a hell of a year. They had a 53-29 year, first in the West. And Game 7, we've all watched it. We don't need to recap it this late after it happened. But, man, it was a slugfest. And the interesting thing is we had been talking on this pod about Jokic and Murray, and then how, if when Gordon and Porter Jr. show up, they're pretty unstoppable. It was KCP and Brown who iced it for them at the end of the game with steals and really clutch free throws. So they are a solid team. They've got the two Browns, BROWN and BRAUN, who are playing great. And KCP played great at the end of that game and throughout the playoffs. They're ready to roll it back, I think, to run it back next year with that squad. They're a really good team, and going to be tough to beat next year. What do you guys think about next year? Think they're a fluke, or are they the team to beat?
Well, they have the absolute best player in the NBA,
Yep.
and that helps, right? That's nice to fall back on, right?
Yep.
But he can't do it alone. When Jamal Murray's hurt, they're not the same team.
That's
Right.
definitely true. That's
And he's-
definitely true. But when Jamal Murray is healthy, you have the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world in Jokic. I hate to confess.
Some would say the real MVP.
He's the real playoff MVP. And I think we learned that, notwithstanding his obsession with the Lakers, Mike Malone is a hell of a coach. I mean, I wish he would stop talking about the Lakers, but he is a hell of a coach. And he look, we joked on our text about, this Mickey Mouse championship ring, because Rooster just went through the incredible parade of teams that the Heat went through. Well, it's the complete opposite of what the Nuggets went through. I mean, they almost could not have gone through a worse set of teams on their way to the championship. You have those there in front of you, Rooster?
T-Wolves beat him 4-1, the Suns 4-2, and the Lakers, they swept, and then the Heat 4-1.
Okay. And I think you had a hurt Suns team, a really aging Lakers team. Now, I was having this debate with my kids. The one thing you can say about Jokic is that Jokic went up against some pretty tough centers. I mean, he went up against Karl Anthony Towns. He went up against Anthony Davis, and he went up against a very talented Suns team.
Ayton on the Suns.
And
So
Bam.
I mean, you got to give them the flowers.
And
They really, I think they'll be back. I think there's no reason to expect that they'll take a step back. I think until someone knocks them off, certainly in the West, they're the prohibitive favorites in the West.
You don't think
So-
the big three in Phoenix?
Well,
Yeah.
we can talk about that.
Be interesting to see how that works out. Yeah,
Not
I mean,
false.
well, Bill, let's ask Bison. He's followed Bradley Beal. Are they getting the Bradley Beal who used to drop 35 pretty consistently, or the guy from the last year or two?
Well, here's the thing. A lot of thoughts on this. Beal's a good player. By all accounts, he seems to be a good teammate, a good guy in the community. I think he's been was with the Wizards 9 years or something. He's still pretty young, but to be in the league that long, I mean, he came in at like 21. I don't like this trade for anybody. Okay, I don't like it for anybody. I don't think that Beal and Durant's personalities confuse me. I don't get them. And Beal, Beal was never going to be the guy. He's never going to be the guy, but I think he thinks he's the guy. And I think that people in Washington told him he was the guy for a long time. Our owner in DC is a pretty good owner. Where he makes a lot of mistakes is he's very loyal to players, which is a good thing. I mean, that's not a bad thing, but it can go into a bad thing.
Wasn't John Wall the guy though for a little while there, and Beal was pretty comfortable as the second guy?
There was a lot of questions about how they could coexist all the time. So you've got I don't know. I just think it's just a strange situation. And then the contract that he had in DC, the $250 million, 5 years with a fucking no trade clause. The only one in the NBA.
The only one in the NBA.
I mean, it really
and he
created
still
a
has
situation.
it too, by the way.
He still has it, right? I don't know. I don't like the trade for anybody. The only thing I will say for Washington is you have completely new ownership. I'm not ownership, but you have new front office regime in there, and they said, what should have happened a year ago. They said if we're gonna burn this thing down and start over.
Tank for Wemby a year ago.
Well, that's what everybody in DC is saying is what the hell. But this is why people got fired and new people are in, and give these guys credit. They had no control because of the no trade clause. They had to get rid of the salary. They did that. We'll see what happens with Chris Paul coming over. A lot
He
of
will
people
not
think
wear
they'll
a
flip.
Wizard uniform.
Well, there's a possibility that he does for the first couple months and then gets moved.
Get his trade value up.
But he's not going to be there long term. That's for sure.
But Bison, what I'm trying to get at is you seem to think that Beal is a decent guy. He's got good character. He's a good teammate.
Nothing to say otherwise. Yeah.
Right. So to me, the trade works for the Suns if Beal is mature enough to decide, you know what, I need to win now. I need to win some championships. I've got enough money, and in order to do that, I need to be an off the ball shooter for the first time in my career. Can he do that?
No.
Yeah, the stats say no.
You know what's worse than having three alphas on a team? Having three wannabe alphas on a team. And I think that's a little bit of what Beal is. I think he wants the aura of being the guy. And look, he's a scorer. I mean, he can score. But so does Durant. So does Booker. Right? It doesn't make any sense to me. He's not Ray Allen, where he's gonna move around the 3-point line and drain threes.
What about James Harden? He sort of changed his game later in his career.
Well, how'd
that work out for the Sixers?
Well, it could have worked out.
It's to be determined still. I mean, this is the thing that a lot of people were saying with this year, notwithstanding the injuries of Murray. This is like year 5 of the Jokic and Murray, 1-2 experiment. We've been in year 1 of Embiid and Harden. I just think that if you can't have a situation where Durant scores 30, Booker scores 30, and Beal scores 30.
No.
So the question is, who is going to be willing to step back? There's no way it's Booker. There's no way it's Booker.
Shouldn't be Booker.
It shouldn't be Booker. He's a pure scorer.
It's not KD.
And Beal's a slasher. I just think this is going to come down to, it's so interesting that you say this, Bison, about their personalities, because if their personalities mesh, and you may be right that they can't, but if Durant and Beal can mature and say, look, we got a good thing with 3 outstanding players. Let's figure out how to work this out. This is coming down to Frank Vogel, Vogel. This comes down to him, his ability to connect these guys. But I agree with you. I hate this trade for both teams. I hate it more for the Wizards. I don't really understand. It was Rui for a bag of chips, and I think Rui can really play. And I think it's Beal for a bag of chips. And here's the issue. If it's really a no trade clause, then you say, sorry, Beal, if you really are refusing, and which apparently he did, refuse the Bucks, the Heat, and the Kings, sorry, then you're staying here until we get better, because this is not enough value for our team.
But he wasn't forcing the trade.
To pay that huge salary, though, while they're trying to rebuild.
Yeah, he wasn't forcing the trade. This wasn't a situation where Beal said, I want out of Washington. This was new front office coming in and saying, we got to get rid of him.
We need to get rid of that salary.
Okay, but was there a calendar issue that this had to be done by a certain date? Otherwise, money kicks in. Like, why did that?
I don't know the answer to that.
That's a big one, because if there wasn't a calendar issue, I blame the Wizards for pulling the trigger too fast. I think they could have pumped up the volume.
Well, they wanted to do it before the draft because that.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Everybody.
But they didn't get a first round pick.
Yeah. Well, look, this was going to go badly the day he signed that contract a year ago.
Yeah,
that's the reality.
50 million.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Hey, so House mentioned Vogel. Let me just read off the new coaches in the league. In the last 2 years, 19 out of 30 teams have switched coaches, and it doesn't really work out all the time.
That's crazy.
The Raptors just hired Darko Rajokovic, who was the Memphis assistant. Houston got Ime Udoka, who was the former Celts assistant. Philly got Nick Nurse, former Raptors head coach. Detroit got Monty Williams, former Suns head coach. Milwaukee signed Adrian Griffin, and I will confess I don't even know who that is.
He's a Raptors assistant.
Okay, and then Phoenix signed Frank Vogel. Who do you think is the best fit on the new team, and is going to make the biggest impact?
So when I looked at this, I actually thought that the biggest impact was none of the above. It was two assistants that got hired, because also kind of below the radar, two assistants that apparently could have gotten head coaching jobs were Sam Cassell of the Sixers and Charles Lee of the Bucks. And both of them were hired to be assistants to your numbnut. Yeah, for the Celtics.
That's right.
I think that's going to be really, really
Yeah.
big with the Celtics.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
But besides those guys, I think I would like to see that Nick Nurse or Monty Williams are the best fits for their team. Monty can coach up young kids, and Detroit's got a hell of a young, very talented team. They're just young. And Nick Nurse, I think he's a heck of a coach. I have no idea why the Raptors let go of him.
I agree with that. I also think Ime Udoka is a very talented coach, especially with younger players who need a little structure. And Houston is just loaded with first round draft picks, and it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah. Well, we got to talk draft too, right? We got the draft Thursday night this week, right?
Yep.
Draft is Thursday night.
And Toby, go ahead. You got it all teed up there.
I'm surprised. I know there's obviously been a lot of talk. I'm surprised there's not been more talk about really a LeBron type player entering the NBA, a generational player. The guy is 7'5", and he can drive. He can dribble up the floor. He can shoot from three. He can dunk. He can block shots. Victor Wembanyama, when he's faced Chet Holmgren, when he's faced real international talent. And let's face it, the last three MVPs in the league came from international. Embiid and Jokic, and Luka. That's where.
And Giannis.
That's where the game is today. And Wembanyama is eating it up.
And how awesome is it that he's going to the exact opposite of what we were just talking about with the coaching carousel? He's going to one of the greatest coaches of all time, who's been on one team for decades, Popovich.
I don't know that Pop will stay through his whole career, but you've got a guy who has coached two of the best centers of all time in David Robinson and Tim Duncan. I think we know that Pop knows how to coach a center. So this Spurs team could get good really, really fast. But, I look back, I know we looked at this last year when we looked at the NBA draft. We looked at drafts before. And boy, if you guys were to look at the 2020 draft versus the 2021 draft, it's like the 2020 is like Anthony Edwards and then a bunch of no names. Well, you can't say that about LaMelo Ball. It's interesting about injury issue, but you get down to 8 and Obi Toppin before there's anybody else who's really doing anything meaningful in the NBA. The cupboard was bare in 2020. 2021, you've got guys like Kate Cunningham, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, Jalen Suggs, Josh Giddey, Davion Mitchell, who are all making serious. So I think what'll be interesting about this year is what type of draft class do we have? And except for NBA insiders who've been studying not just the college game, but the international game and the G League game, the answer is we don't really know. All of the draft projections, half of the lottery picks at least are G League players. So the number 2 pick is likely to be Scoot Henderson to Charlotte, who looks great.
But over Brandon Miller, huh?
Brandon Miller.
Yeah, he's dropping.
All the mocks,
for some reason.
all the mocks I'm seeing are still Brandon Miller at 2.
I don't think so. I think Charlotte's going to go with Scoot Henderson. That seems to be the latest. I think Brandon Miller's likely to slot in at number 4 with Houston, which, if that's the case, would be unbelievable for Houston. I think Miller's got huge upside. other college players that we're familiar with that we saw a lot of are Cam Whitmore from Nova, a one and done guy who's thought to go around 4 or 5, maybe go 5 to Detroit. Jarris Walker, really talented forward for Houston, who's thought to go around 7 or 8, maybe to Indiana or Washington. And then
Anthony Black
from Arkansas to maybe at 10 to Dallas.
I think he ends up in Washington, although some of that depends on the next couple of days. But
yeah, so look, we could talk through a bunch of names. The reality is
the Thompson twins.
No one's really going to know for a few years. I think everything about this draft is, does Victor Wembanyama turn into Tim Duncan, or does he turn into Greg Oden? And you never know with 7'5" guys. The whole question,
It's all about the feet.
It's all about.
Listen, we were having this conversation last year about Chet Holmgren,
right?
And what happened?
He hurt his foot before he ever played yet. Even a summer game, right?
We called that.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how Jordan Hawkins from UConn plays as a pro. I think he's smooth. He's got a huge upside.
I think the other thing that's really interesting about this draft, and House, you alluded to it, is all the G League players coming in. The top 15, I don't know, a third of them are G League guys. Predicted at least. I mean, that's new. That's that's different. We haven't seen that before. I don't think.
And you're going to see more of it. The number 1 player in
Amen.
college
Amen.
left Texas and went to the G League, play for the Ignite. You're going to see more and more of that.
So I think
which makes it hard. It makes it hard to figure out what the draft's going to be.
It certainly makes it hard for folks who aren't like total gym rats watching every second of film. It's not so fun for the pundits like us, but I don't. It'll be interesting. Now we're going to see in the future a competition between NIL money. How much can you get in NIL money to be a one and doneer in NCAA versus what you can do in the G League? I mean, that's where the battle lines are drawn.
Yeah, and is that the thing? Is the G League there because you can't go straight from high school anymore? Correct. Is that the whole issue where that came from?
And before the NIL, there was some money too.
Right.
So,
all right. Well, anybody want to make predictions for their team? Who they take? Balin, who do you think the Celtics or the Knicks? I can't remember.
The Knicks have nothing in the top 20 or so. I don't know. I don't have any idea. I'm curious to see who the Mavericks take with the pick they stole from the Knicks.
Yeah. I really hope we don't take Dick.
He's a great 3-point shooter.
I'm anti-Dick.
Yeah.
Who do you think you're taking? Dick?
I worry about that. I like Anthony Black from Arkansas. I think.
Do you actually worry about that? Do you like lay awake at night worrying? Is that?
I do.
Is that you do?
I actually do.
About Dick?
You worry about Dick?
Worried about it, yes.
Huh. Okay. I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that.
Didn't see a doctor about that.
Yeah.
I don't think Black's going to be around.
I don't either.
By the 10th pick.
No, I think Washington takes that.
I've said it from day one. I think it's a pawn. I think we're moving that pick, but I don't know what the package looks like yet.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to try to, get somebody to come in and play with Luka, and it's not going to be a draft pick.
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
Anything else on NBA?
Good luck to all your teams.
All right, so we have to at least acknowledge, we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but congratulations to the Vegas Golden Knights on hoisting the Stanley Cup. The second time that the Stanley Cup has been skated around the Las Vegas rink, the first time by the home team. And really they sort of put on a clinic in the Stanley Cup finals. It was, do you guys remember a cup clinching win that was
9-goal win?
Unfortunately, the Flyers got swept by the Detroit Red Wings and lost Game 4 at home 8-0, and I was there. So,
ouch.
Yeah,
Whoa.
My wife kept saying to me, like, have you ever seen anything this bad? I was like, unfortunately, we have the Flyers, but this was like a demolition. There's some, you joke about it's the second time the Cup has been skated around in that arena, but how about the fact that
I was definitely serious about that.
No, well, all right, but it's the second time that a Cup series has been played in 6
Vegas,
years of a franchise.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And I saw a thing that said one of their star players that led the entire NHL in points, this guy Jack Eichel, that they got from the Sabres when the Sabres didn't treat him as well as he wanted to be, and now he's a superstar for the Vegas. The Buffalo came in the league in 1970 as an expansion team. They've never won a Cup, and they have the longest playoff drought in the NHL at 12 years. Vegas has been in the league 6 years, and they already have played in 2 Cups and have won one.
Well, we don't have time to talk to get too much into this, but just something to leave our listeners with. Look at that franchise in Vegas juxtaposed against the Raiders, where the Raiders have had, drama after drama after drama, guys in jail, coaches fired. I mean, just really a lot of problems in Vegas. And then you've got the Golden Knights, who all they've done has been professional and play in 2 finals. It's interesting to look at those two, especially with what seems like the Oakland A's moving there as a baseball team. So just something to think about.
Look out for the Kraken.
Yeah, congrats to the Golden Knights, worthy champions, of course. Hope you got a punchable face this week. You got to do it.
Look, you guys are forcing me into a punch that I'm not going to completely take.
Wow.
What?
Right, because I did a little research.
Oh boy.
And I actually was here in Atlanta with my dad watching and my mom watching this game and watching the Michael Harris show and watching his father out in the stands as he was wrecking havoc with Colorado pitching, including a mammoth home run. But it all starts with, and I'll give him a milk slap for this, Charlie Culberson, who's a journeyman, got called up, has not played for the Braves since he got called up in May. His dad was selected to throw out the first pitch for Father's Day at Atlanta Stadium. And right before the game, DFA'd. You guys know what DFA'd means?
Designated for assignment.
Free agent.
I just wanted to make sure. Yes, designated for assignment because they had to bring up an extra catcher because one of their catchers was injured on the roster. And so, this journeyman who was hadn't played was sent back to the minors, which wouldn't be a big deal.
He's frozen. Wouldn't be a big deal except for the fact that they had asked his dad to throw out the first pitch.
Was deprived of. Right, but what they did was they made up for it by having Michael Harris, the second's father, and Michael Harris was a reigning Rookie of the Year from last year. And they had his father throw out the first pitch. And then as a result of that, I don't know whether it inspired him or not, but he went 5 for 5 and he had a great game, 3 RBIs, big home run.
They made it up to who?
They made it up to themselves.
They made it up to themselves. Yeah.
Not to the player and dad who got screwed.
Look, if you're called up and you don't even play and you're sent back, you can't really complain.
Then don't pick the guy's father to throw out the first pitch on Father's Day. That's bad planning.
Milk slap.
Could they have waited a day to send the guy down?
Milk slap and a mini lasso.
Did the catcher they called up even get in the game?
No,
they had to have him on. They had to have him on a roster.
There is no lasso about this.
That was a great story.
This is awful.
Boo.
This is awful.
Well, look, you guys put me in that position. What did you expect me to do?
Punch him. Deliver a knockout.
Since you're now a Rangers fan, we expect you to to
Yeah.
be a journalist here.
All right, we got a couple other punches we got to throw this week. Anybody else have one?
Who else are you punching?
Well, I think we gotta punch Huggy Bear.
Oh, yeah.
God.
Oh
So
boy.
obvious.
Yeah.
Adios.
The former coach of the West Virginia Mountaineers, right? Who's now retired and done. He had a really bad month where he issued a inappropriate slur on a radio show, tried to back out of that, and then 2 weeks later was arrested for a DUI with a fairly benign 0.2, right?
Where did this happen?
Breathalyzer.
Wasn't it in West
Pittsburgh.
Virginia?
No,
Happened in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. He told the police he thought he was in Columbus.
Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah. Because of it's okay to
And
drive
he had
you know,
he had a garbage
blackout
bag
drunk
of
in
beer
Columbus.
cans in his trunk,
Yeah.
and
So-
and empty ones littered in his front seat. So
Any
that, you know.
any Big East fans here have a lot of reasons to punch Huggins,
Wow.
and we're
Feels so
finally
bad
getting
for
it.
those kids.
I
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I don't know if it's too late for the transfer portal, but
Oh,
maybe there's one in the
Anyway.
fall.
and then I got another punch too. The MLB commissioner, Rob Manfred, completely out of touch. I mean, this guy, whenever he opens his mouth, it's bad. But, you know, he was asked about in Oakland, these guys, these poor fans of the A's are losing their team probably. And one of the big problems is they can't get a new stadium deal worked out. And, you know, the Major League Baseball wants to blame the city and nobody wants to take responsibility for it. Well, the fans had a reverse boycott and they had 27,000 people show up at the Coliseum to prove there's a fan base there. And Manfred, when asked about it, said, yeah, it was great to see what's basically an average crowd at most MLB facilities there.
Oh my God, I didn't hear that.
Oh, yeah. He says, that's really great. So, I mean, this guy, you know, he could have said, you know, look, we understand this is going to be hard. We're still trying to work it out. Anything except mocking the people who are losing their team, who are the real fans of this team who showed up. Manfred, you get a punch. God, will you please just leave baseball alone, you piece of shit.
Or
Okay.
leave baseball.
God, okay. That's it on punches, unless anyone's got another one. Never lets us down. How about a lasso, Rooster?
Yeah, I have what I think is a nice lasso and one that's very pertinent to our show.
No, you said a great lasso. so
Okay, it's a
there's
great
some
lasso. It's
fucking pressure on you here.
it's a excellent lasso.
All right.
You know, we recently covered the horrible racism that black footballers have experienced in La Liga, which is Spain's premier soccer league. And so I want to talk a little bit about the Shorty Awards recently, which the Shorty Awards honor the best people in social media and digital, you know, short stories basically. So La Liga recently teamed up with ESPN and Scape, which we're familiar with, and Black Arrow FC to create a series to shine a light on the black players of La Liga. And the series was called Black Stars of La Liga. And last week, the series won the 2023 #Sports Award for excellence in black storytelling for the series Black Stars of La Liga. Well, the executive producer of that show was none other than our pal Jerry Bembry's daughter,
Wow.
Ashley
awesome.
Marie Bembry Kaintuk. And she has just been killing it lately. I mean, I've followed her. She's done some really nice pieces over time as a unit producer for ESPN Films, and she's just really put on some good things. I think they did a nice story on black hockey players at one point, like PK Subban. She did that Coppin State documentary.
Oh yeah.
I think maybe earlier this year or last year. In any event, I just wanted to congratulate our friend of the show, Jerry Bembry, on the massive success of his daughter, Ashley Marie.
That is a good one. That's a really good one. That's worthy
Yep.
of the hype you gave it.
Yep. I thought you guys would like that.
Yeah, I like it a lot. All right. How about buzzer beaters?
I have one. I'm interested to see whether this is one step forward, two steps back, or something like that, whatever the expression is for U.S. men's soccer. The good news is they had a resounding championship run through the CONCACAF Nations League. All of the surrounding North American and related countries are two nearest rivals now, not just geographically, but in terms of style of play, and not style of play, quality of play over here, are Mexico and Canada. And we ran through them with the young guns that are sure to be the 2026 World Cup team. They looked awesome. The bad news is in the middle of the semifinal game, they announced that they were bringing back none other than Greg Berhalter, who you might recognize was the coach of the World Cup team. That while we were happy with some moments during that World Cup to get out of group play, overall, there were a lot of problems, including serious problems with a potential future star in Gio Reyna, who we've covered on this pod.
Yep.
And the people in all over social media, just in the soccer community, are scratching their heads today and this past few days about really U.S. men's soccer spent a ton of money to go out on a candidate search. And the person that they hired in their candidate search was the person that they fired from the World Cup. It's so weird. And I hope it doesn't end up being.
They claim they considered 200 candidates. Find that hard to believe.
And after 200 people, they went back to the guy that they had to fire because they didn't. I mean, it's just so weird. So
was he technically fired, or did they just kind of put him on leave?
Yeah, well, it's a good question what they would label it, but he definitely wasn't their coach anymore because they've had a different coach. In fact, this guy, BJ Callahan, that just coached them, he's been with the team for the last few weeks. They look fantastic. I don't know if it's responsibility of the players or him, but I don't know. I hope that they don't go backwards.
I mean, I think there was some thought that he got railroaded unfairly, and because of that, after the investigation was over, they're like, we don't have any real reason to deny him the opportunity to coach the team again after he did such a good job with the World Cup.
They hired him without he's not even talked to those players where there was problems with. I mean, I'd at least like to see we've mended fences, things are better. I don't know. I hope it's the right move. It's not a very popular move so far.
All right. Any more buzzer beaters? I got a couple.
I have a quick one. Remember when we gave the punch to Matt Ishbia for interfering with Jokic, who was trying to get the ball back in bounds?
Yeah.
And remember, I was saying, why in the world is Isaiah Thomas standing there helping him grab Jokic? Well, Chris Paul just said today that he thinks Isaiah Thomas played a role in him getting traded from the Suns. So, if Ishbia brings Isaiah on in some sort of an executive role, bad fucking news for the Suns. That's all I have to say.
Wow.
Yeah, apparently it's one of his go-to consultants.
He practically destroyed the Knicks for forever.
Yeah. Pope, you got one? Pope, buzzer beater?
I think he's frozen.
Pope.
His eyes are moving, but his lips aren't.
I got a couple. Number one.
I mean, I guess my only buzzer beater is that I look forward to talking about
Major League. Beat the buzzer.
Major League Baseball.
You didn't beat the buzzer.
Somehow the Rangers continue to separate between the Astros.
All right, couple quick ones. The Montreal Grand Prix. Max Verstappen continues his barnstorming through the F1 schedule. But 2 weeks in a row, we've seen Lewis Hamilton on the podium. That's kind of exciting. It makes you optimistic for next season. Maybe Mercedes has it figured out and is getting closer. And Fernando Alonso came in second, continues to just drive incredibly well. The Sancio Grand Prix. Does anybody know where Road of America is?
It's in Pontiac, Michigan.
Somewhere in America.
It's in Wisconsin. Alex Palau won. Scott Dixon had a blow up with Will Power. Not to be outdone, Scott Dixon had a blow up with Pat O'Ward. And It was a lot of fun on there. There's definitely a little more NASCAR to those drivers than the very polite F1 guys. And then the last buzzer beater for me is the College World Series. Milk mentioned it last week. It's in full effect. Bracket 1, I think I got this right. Florida has no losses. TCU has 1 loss. Oral Roberts has 1 loss. Virginia's out. And in bracket 2, Wake Forest has no losses. LSU has no losses. Tennessee has 1 loss. And Stanford is out. So we're in the thick of the College World Series. And we have games coming up. Tennessee, I don't know. I know that must be over. I don't know. There's games starting now, and it's crazy, and it's double elimination and all that. So keep watching.
Pope's frozen, but I think he said go Oral.
Yeah.
That's why he's been staying up at night.
That's why he stays up at night worrying about.
Oh
Dick.
my God! All right, that's enough. That is
all right,
enough.
guys. Anything else? Have a good
This
week,
is
everybody.
finito.
Big MLB discussion next week. Talk to you guys.
Oh.